Hi, I'm Craig Phillips. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build your own child's mud kitchen, just like this one, suitable for indoors and outdoors. All the materials I've used are recycled. I've broken down some pallets. This is the pallet slats all the way along the back splashboard and the shelving in there. The whole frame itself and all these thicker timbers around the cooker area and the legs are the actual skids. That's the underside of the pallet. And then the work surface itself is just simply two scaffolding boards. I've bought quite a few accessories, of course, to put along the shelves, lots of small instruments for the kitchen. It's got almost everything but the kitchen sink. Now, the tools you're going to require to build your mud kitchen are a chop saw. If you don't have a chop saw, a hand saw will be fine. Set square, tape measure, sander, cordless drill, various size drill bits and screws, glue, and a cork gun, a jigsaw, hand clamps, and if you're lucky enough to have a compressor with a nail gun, that'll be great, but don't worry if you haven't, you'll still manage with your claw hammer. Now, as with most of my builds, I always recommend doing a drawing first and working out your dimensions. And that's what my mud kitchen is going to look like. Now, as mentioned a moment ago, I'm going to construct my mud kitchen out of reclaimed pallet wood. The two general sizes you're going to get when you dismantle your pallets, one is the skid, which is the thicker part. Normally have 3 of them, and then you have the slats that bridge across the top of them. The slats are probably about 15 millimeters wide and maybe about 60 to 70 millimeters. The skids themselves are thicker. They're probably about 40 millimeters by probably about 70 millimeters there. Now, the frame is going to consist of these 3 sections here and here. So if we look closely at this side end, we've got a back piece which stands up 1 meter high, which these lengths are probably about just over 1 meter. I'll trim them down to size. So I want to cut 3 of them. I also want to cut 3 legs for the front. They're at 420 high. And then I want to cut 6 pieces for across the front and back legs, 2, 4, and 6, and they're only going to be 400 millimeters wide. So that is my 3 back legs, 3 front legs, and 6 braces that's going to hold these together. So this is the back leg, the back part here. This is going to be the front leg, and then these braces will be, one will be along here, which will be the bottom shelf, and it'll hold that together at that height, and then the top one will be fixed in here and spanning across there, and that'll actually hold the work surface, the 2 scaffolding boards that we'll be putting on there. Now, I'm going to sand these down. You don't have to sand down every little bit of it, because some of it you won't see. It's just mainly the front legs and a little bit of the back pieces. So now I'm going to assemble the first leg. I've got my meter high piece for the back, my front leg here, and then the 2 sections to fix these together. And one's going to go here and one's going to go here. What I have got is a couple of little packs, just a couple of little pieces of metal that are about 15 millimeters. I'm going to place them underneath there. Now, this is only for aesthetic purposes. You could actually have them flush to there, but I'm going to be fixing it more or less like this. So I'm going to square that up to the front leg. Once you're happy that that's nice and square there, you can then drive some screws. And I'm putting 80 millimeter screws in here. They're only thin, they're only about 6 mil wide. So I'm just going to drive them through. You won't need any pilot hole. That's got nice and tight. And you can see that now it's actually stepping back just at 15 millimeters. It could be 2 or 3 millimeters. And when this whole frame is put together and we've got our top hanging over there, it just aesthetically, it looks better. I'm now going to screw it to this back leg. So that's one section. We'll take another one of these, and then this will now be fitted in here. Now, I'm not going to fit that right the way down to the floor. Again, I'm just going to probably have about 50 millimeters there, but again, I want it set back a little bit because you are going to see it. So again, I'll use my packers. Okay, so that is now, undo him. That is one of my frames now built. All I need to do now is build 2 more of these. One will be one end, and then 2 will be about here, where the actual cooker is. So that's my 3rd and final structure of the actual frame. So there's 3 of these all in all. These 2 are going to be about that far apart. This one is going to be further down there. Now I'm going to focus on this side first. This is where the cooker's going to be, the cooker there and the cooker door. So I want to now fix these together by adding some braces in between here. 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom, the front and back of course. So I'm going to go about 475mm. Again, I'm going to use some of my thicker wood, which is the skids from the underside of the actual pallets. Okay, so these are going to be my bottom pieces here and here. Now I am going to fit these. I could fit them like this. They're going to be at the same height as these, but I'm actually going to fit them like this, because what they're also going to do is double up as holding the actual base in here when we put the standard pallet slats on there. So these are going to be fixed at that position, like that. So I'll start by drilling a couple of holes in the sides of here, and put my 75mm screws. Same again the opposite side in the front. Right, that's that one side done. I'm going to do the same on this side. Okay, so that now is nice and solid. It's held these 2 side sections together. I'm now going to put 2 for the top, 1 across the front and 1 here across the back. The back one is going to sit tight into that corner, the same as this. It's not going to be seen, it's just for the actual shred. But the front one is going to span from here to here, because I want it to finish flush on the edge of here. So now these are cut, this is going to be fixed in between there, but I am going to have to get my clamp on this, clamp it together, and when I lift that up into position, I'll get it level and flush to the front, making sure it's level now. Now that's in, this one can be fitted in here. This is the one that's going to go tight into the corners there. So again, I'll drive a couple of pilot holes in both sides and a couple of screws in. Now that is nice and solid now, like there. So what I'm going to do now is fire a couple of screws through these sides here and here to catch this front piece. And I can even drive a screw in there on an angle. Same again the opposite side. And what will really pull all this together in strength wise, you've got the frame of course, but when the slat's coming across here, that'll stabilise the base of it. And then of course we're going to have scaffolding planks bridging right across the top, which will be fixed into here and here, which will hold it all really, really well. So that's nice and strong now. The next stage is to do the same with 4 more braces and hold this end section on. Now I want a gap there between about 940mm across there and there, 940. So again, using my big, thick, long skids from the pallet, cut 4 of these down and put this back piece in first. So again, this is going to sit tight into that corner there and tight into that corner. Just to raise that up a fraction, that's it. I'll get this end one in first. Same again, the opposite side. I'll put a little batten across the top there to keep it level and flush. Drill a pilot hole in. Sometimes it's a little bit easy getting fixings in from different angles. That side's okay to come in from there. This side, of course, I can't because of this timber in place. So I'm going to screw in 2 screws in there, and then I'll pop a couple through the back as well and grabbing that from another angle. Now this front section, I don't actually want to have it like that, because that's going to reduce the space that I've got underneath for the children putting pots and pans in there. So I'm actually going to fix this one like that angle there. So I'll drill a couple of pallet holes in here again. Okay, so that should hold it while I get a fixing in from the other side. Now the last cut for the front will be set back in there around about 940. So that's the base section of the frame now complete. Our 3 sections here are all braced together with timbers front and back there. All I'm going to do now is do the same up here at the top, one bridging across here, then one bridging across there, and then it's ready to fit the pallet slats on. So that's all the structure now complete out of the thicker timber. The next stage is the standard slats off the pallet. These are about 18 millimeters thick. I'm going to cut them down at about 550 millimeters in length, sand down the front of them, and then fix them all the way across the back here from one end right to the other to form the splashback. Now before I fix these pallet slats to the back, I've got to do a couple of things. One is to actually pace it out. So I've made a mark at the center of here, and then I'm just going to place these in position. They are going to be fitted along the back, but I just want to see whether I'm going to need a gap in them, because what you've probably seen, some of the slats themselves are a different thickness. So if I pace them out, I can decide how many I need, and also if I need to put a little bit more of a bigger space, because what I don't want to do is work my way to one end and then have a little slither to fit on the end. So that isn't looking too bad. There we are on there. I can place that in a bit tighter, and then I know that is my center mark here. Let's put one more on that. That's my center mark there. I'm only going to need relatively very small millimeter gap in between any of them whatsoever. You want that rustic look effect, so having little gaps in the back splashback isn't a problem. It will look nice. Now one more thing, before I fix these in here, I've got something to fix them to along the top, of course, and they can be glued and fixed into here. But when they're resting on the top of this, they're going to be quite loose there, and I want it all flush with that. So what I am going to do is just put in a couple more noggins in here. They're not part of the main structure, adding any strength. All they're actually doing is help pin this to here. There's a number of ways you can fix your pallet slats on to the back. Now all the structure in place, I'm going to apply some glue along the edges here. You can place them in position and get your panel pins and knock them in with a hammer, of course, but what's going to make it a lot quicker, if you do have one, a compressor with an air gun. So I'm just going to put on plenty of grab adhesive, which is a nice good strong wood glue. That's my center point in there, so I'm going to place my first one right on that edge. Just going to double check with the spirit level that it's in the right position before I start. Perfect. So that's the back slat now complete across there. I'm going to do the exact same for this bottom shelf here. I'm going to cut the slats, sand them all down, and then fix them to the top of this and the top piece at the back, all the way along from one end right to the other. Now that's the pallet slats all complete. They're cut down to size, they've been sanded, and they're glued and pinned into position on this bottom shelf, and of course the back splashback. The next stage is the actual work surface itself. Now I've got myself 2 old second-hand reclaimed scaffolding boards. I'm going to cut them down to size, leaving about 70mm overhang on each end. Give them a really good clean up, a sand down, maybe buff off the edges of them, make it nice and smooth, just so we've got a bit of a bull nose, it's called, on the edge of your kitchen work surface. So I'm going to place these scaffolding boards on top of the mud kitchen now. They're cut down to size and all the edges have been sanded up, so there's no splinters and there's nice soft ends. Now the next stage is to cut some holes out for the bowls. We did say at the start, everything but the kitchen sink. So of course we haven't got a kitchen sink, we've got a dog bowl instead. Perfect for this. I'm going to place them kind of about here, because bear in mind, that's where my cooker's going to be. We're going to have 4 rings on there, and we're going to also put some noggins up here and a nice little shelf along the top there. We'll also trim these rough edges off where they're not actually even, and then place a section on the top of there. But cutting these out, I think that's about where I want them. There. Now bearing in mind, I have got the noggins on the underside of here, which I don't want to cut in with my jigsaw. So I'm going to just draw a little pencil mark on here. Now, those of you at home who have got a dog may know when they're cleaning their dog bowl up, that bottom circle isn't the same size as that top one, and we want this to slip down right to the top rim. So, looking at that, it probably is about another 10 or 15mm bigger than this circle. So, I'm just going to draw relatively freehand a wider circle than I've traced around the bottom. There we go. Now to cut these down, I'm going to cut them out with my jigsaw. Now, the holes I've cut out are big enough for my bowls. These worktops are going to be glued and fixed to the frame, of course, so they're secure, and they will also be glued down, but I'm not going to do that yet because this top is going to have an oil on it to protect it, and also the slats here at the back and on the underside, I'm going to paint them with a chalk paint, let it dry, and then apply an external furniture wax on it to give it that old distressed look, which is what I'm going for. And I may even paint the legs a little bit of a different colour too. So the next stage is, while these are in loose, is to cut down the top of here to make sure these are all nice and level. I've also cut down some more of these skids that we use for the legs, and I'm going to fix them on here, one across there and one on the other side, and that'll hold my shelf over the top. So again, a little bit of glue, that's going to be flush to that edge here. Now I've cut these at about 370mm high. Put a couple of screws in there, hold them into position. Same again here. Okay, so now this piece is going to be a shelf. So I've cut it so it's flush at one end, and it's just going to sit more or less onto that section, and then another straight full piece there. So I'll apply a little bit of glue along the back of this, and also a little bit of glue on here. That places flush to there, and then just sitting on that. I'm going to drive a screw in from the top, a couple of screws from the back. Now this is hardly noticeable because of course it's just the wood colour at the minute, but when I paint these slats, I'm going to of course paint these a lot lighter colour than the actual frame, so it will stand out, look quite visual, and of course it's a shelf so the kids can put things on top of it. And they can also hang things from here, utensils all the way across there. And now I'm going to fix some more screws all the way along the back of there, just catching that and making it a lot stronger until that glue dries. So that's the shelf now complete on there, with the struts holding it up and a little capping for the top of there, which will make it more weatherproof. So that's the structure of my mud kitchen now complete. All that's left to do is add the accessories and the door if you choose to. Now I'm going to put some hooks all the way along the top here, and I've got some nice plastic utensils, perfect for the children to play with. In the center here, where the cooker's going to be, I cut a piece of wood, painted it black to create a chalkboard, and then a friend of mine done the sign writing on there and wrote up Nellie's mud kitchen for my daughter. Now the section here, I've got some old discs from my weight training days. Being a father of 2 children now, I simply don't get the chance to use them anymore, as you can probably tell. So I'm putting them to better use, and they're now becoming the rings on there so Nellie can put her pots and pans. Underneath is going to be a door here. Now this is a choice, you don't have to have a door, you can leave it open if you want. But all I'm going to do is cut down a piece of plywood to the size of the opening here. Then I'm going to cut 4 pieces of pallet slat, miter all 4 corners at 45 degrees. Offer these up together, glue them, fix them down, and that's my door complete. Add 2 hinges and then it's hung. Now the door's on. Give it a gentle sand down all over to make sure there's no splinters anywhere. Brush off the dust, and then you can think about what treatment you're going to apply to make it more weatherproof. You've got a number of choices. You could paint it. I'm going to be using a chalk paint, it's one of my favourites. You could apply a furniture wax, an oil, a clear transparent wood preserver. The choice is yours. So that's how easy it is to build your own mud kitchen. Hopefully I've inspired you to have a go yourself. But if you're looking for more inspiration and how-to videos, please visit the website silverlinetools.com.